This is Talking Law on Radio 97. Do you have a legal question, whatever size, big or small? Despina, happy to answer it for you on the radio. Just go to the website, which is radio97.com.au. Right up the top there's a couple of ways of contacting us. You can find all of that information in the one place, radio97.com.au.
Alrighty, and we're back with Desi. And now we're talking about the High Court case in regards to Google. It was a defamation case. So if anyone is listening and they go, I don't know what this is about, can you give us a little recap, Despina? Who was involved and, what happened?
Okay, so very quickly, this was a High Court case. It started off in the local courts, but anyway, it went on appeal and it's got to the High Court, and now we have this decision about the Google and the search engine Google and its liability for third-party publications. This involved a criminal lawyer in Victoria, and it was alleged he alleged that he was defamed by a particular story published originally by The Age in Melbourne. And without going into too many details about the article published was talking about his connection with the underworld and Melbourne gangland killings. So I haven't read the story myself, but that's where this has come from. It was he said he was defamed by the publication of the story that linked him to Melbourne ganglands and killers and crime, etc. So now we have this High Court case. Now, the High Court here determined that Google, being a search engine, as we all know, was not liable and was not seen as a publisher of this story. And there's reasons for that. And I think and when we'll get into it a little bit now, the important thing that I want people to take away, and I do want them to listen to the whole story here, is because people might say, well, who cares? Google, why they're not liable? I don't really care. What's got to do with me? I think what people need to understand is that the law of defamation is evolving, and particularly with the use of social media. We've seen that. Last year, we had a massive law reform around all the states and territories in Australia. We talked about that on the show previously. So we are in a state of law reform, and I think it will continue to evolve. And particularly when this decision, when we go into it, what people need to know is that it wasn't a unanimous decision by the High Court. It was a majority decision, 5-2, 5 judges agreeing and making that determination Google was not liable. We had 2 dissenting judges of the High Court that said that Google was liable in their opinion. So in my view, you see the courts left the door open very much so, with potential liability in the future for people like Google and other companies, even, your average Joe Blow who may publish a story and potentially be defamatory. Now, in this case, what the High Court said, the primary reason why they said that Google was not liable was because what Google did is that they put a hyperlink to the original story that The Age published, and people were able to read that story because Google put a hyperlink, on their website. So using their search engine, people found out about their story because of the hyperlink. Now, Google did no more, no less than that. They didn't condone the story. They didn't add commentary. They didn't do anything more other than provide this hyperlink. Okay, so the High Court said, well, for that reason, we don't see them as a publisher at all. All they did was provide a hyperlink without anything more, no condoning of the story and commentary.
Yep.
And that was very important. Had it been different, right, had the circumstances been different and had Google done more than that, then potentially they would have been found liable. So they were just a facilitator. In other words, they didn't do anything more than that. But the reasons are given by the dissenting judges are very important. And I wanted to read out some quotes because, as I said, the court has left the door open, and the lack of a unanimous front by the High Court speaks volumes as we move towards the future with social media continuing to evolve and technology continuing to evolve. Some of the comments made by the 2 judges that were dissenting here. So what they said in their opinion is that Google's involvement could not be described as passive in aiding others to access and comprehend the defamatory article Google had participated in its publication. And it actually went on to say, another judge said that out of the 2 judges, the second judge said that Google intentionally participated in and lent its assistance to and was instrumental in contributing to the communication of the defamatory article by identifying, indexing, ranking, and hyperlinking it within the search result. So that was a really interesting commentary, and that's why I say the door's left ajar, depending on the circumstances of the case in the future.
And you can see how this could have ramifications for anybody, for you, me, anyone listening this morning, because if we say, for example, that age story, but it could be any story, we've read it and we've thought, yeah, okay, some of our friends, some of the people who follow us, whatever, might like to see that story, might like to read it. So if we, for example, put it up on our Facebook page, something as simple as that, and say, okay, well, here's this story, have a look at it, here's the link. And so that in itself, we're actually pointing towards the story and drawing more attention to it.
Well, that's right. And see, if you're doing it as an individual, you're not a search engine, are you? So what you're doing in this a little bit different. And we had that Voller case, the other High Court case earlier in the year. I think it was end of last year. We talked about that, where he was found liable as a publisher. You have to be really, really careful about putting any commentary of any kind on social media, any endorsement, express or implied, is going to get you into trouble. As I said, this recent case has left the door ajar to potential defamatory cases in the future, where people might be seen as publishers of articles that someone else published, but you're just distributing it. And it's the way that you're going to distribute it that I think will be quite significant as to whether you're found to be a publisher or not. Interestingly, in this case, the High Court referred to a Canadian decision back in 2011, which talked about hyperlinks were just, in essence, references. Google's like a library. All they were doing was just providing a reference to another source, and it's not publication on its own in that way. But had someone done that with endorsement, just by a simple commentary of, here's a hyperlink to a story, it's pretty bad, this guy did this, or have a look, I think this is right, or something along those lines, you're condoning it, you're endorsing it. And potentially you could be found liable. So you have to be really, really careful these days. And as I said, the law of defamation is quite intense. We've gone through some law reform, and it is quite alive in our current community, and moving towards the future. I think people need to be mindful of that. As I've always said, be mindful of what you publish anyway on social media. In our industry as lawyers, we just can't comment on pretty much anything. Because we have very high obligations, of course, to the court and to our clients. But I think the average person needs to be very careful. Take the message from this High Court case. You don't want to end up in the High Court. And the thing here is that the original court found that Google was liable, and then it went on appeal, and then Google's actually won. So it's something not to take light of. With this court, and I think the message has to be brought home to the average person out there, that this could impact upon you if you do the wrong thing.
Yeah, got to be careful in this day and age, Desi. All right, well, thank you so much for another session of Talking Law. If anyone does want to get in touch with you directly, Despina, about anything to do with the law, where can they go?
So they can phone the office 55291 294, and they can certainly reach out to me on email, info@prialalegal.com.au. I know some listeners have recently done that, and I've met some listeners. I'm very happy to do that and meet listeners, of course, and look after their needs. Or, of course, they'll be able to look at this on YouTube at the end of the week.
Yeah, you can just search Priala Legal on YouTube, Priala. Thank you again, Despina and Wayne.
And we'll see you next week.
See you then, guys.